Welcome to Spotlight. We're talking today about the Working Poor Families Project. Joining us is the project director, Brandon Roberts. Thanks for joining us. Also, Ruthie Liberman, Vice President of Public Policy for the Crittenton Womens Union from Massachusetts. And Jason Perkins-Cohen, Executive Director of the Job Opportunities Task Force from Baltimore. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. First, Brandon, tell us about the Working Poor Families Project. What is it?
We are a national initiative that is 8 years old. Our purpose is to strengthen state policies on behalf of low-income working families. So to do that, we work in states across the country and support state nonprofit groups like the ones that Ruthie and Jason are involved in, and assist them in tackling issues in state policy that affect the ability of the working poor to succeed economically. We currently have a presence in 24 states and the District of Columbia.
And who supports the Working Poor Families Project?
We're supported by 4 major foundations, the Annie E. Casey Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Mott Foundation, and the Joyce Foundation.
Ruthie, what are the key accomplishments of state organizations, particularly in Massachusetts?
Well, my organization works with low-income women, and we're focused on helping working women reach economic independence. And through our involvement with the Working Poor Families Project, we've had 2 major accomplishments. One was the creation of a grant program called the Educational Rewards Program that's specifically for low-income working adults to help them go back to school to upgrade their skills so that they can earn salaries that would support their families. And the second major area is the creation of a work training fund that's a sectoral initiative. That means it's geared toward training workers to meet the needs of industry in Massachusetts because particularly prior to the recession, we had a lot of unfilled jobs in our state and a lot of people needing work, especially a lot of low-income women needing work, and they just didn't have the skills to fill those jobs. So we, through our work with the Working Poor Families Project, were able to create this new training fund.
Okay. And Jason, tell me a little bit about your organization and how the partnership works.
Sure. So my organization is the Job Opportunities Task Force in Baltimore, and our mission is to help low-wage workers advance to high-wage jobs. And the Working Poor Families Project has been an invaluable resource for us. Some of the things that we've worked on with WPFP's help, or the Working Poor Families Project's help, one of them, for example, is increasing the state's investment in adult education. Maryland is, by most barometers, a very highly educated state, and we take a lot of pride in that in terms of the percentage of the population that has an advanced degree. What isn't as well known is that there's also a huge percentage of the population that doesn't have a high school diploma or GED. And Maryland was really falling behind the other states in the nation in terms of its investment it was making in adult education. So through the Working Poor Families Project's help, we were able to issue some reports and advocate to the state to make sure that the state understood the significance of increasing its investment, and the state over time has more than doubled its investment in adult education.
So Brandon, you mentioned that you're in 24 states. How do you identify the organization that you're going to partnership? And it's one organization per state that you partner with.
One organization per state. We have several factors that we look at. Primarily, the key thing that we're looking at is that there is an environment, a conducive environment for doing the type of work that we're interested in, so that there are issues that need addressing and that there is a recognition on the desire of policymakers in that state to try and do something about it. We then have to find an organization, a nonprofit organization that has both the interest in working on these issues as well as the capacity to learn and be able to take the data and the research that we provide them and put that to good use. We don't have a goal of being in all 50 states. We think it's important to focus on a solid number. 25 is where we're at today, and what that really does for us is forms a very solid network. I think one of the key things that perhaps Jason and Ruthie would talk about is their ability to interact with their peers across states and learn from their experiences and share information. as they all try to work on similar type issues.
Well, I know that, Jason, you've had a lot of success with the partnership. Just give us a few examples of
Sure.
some of the ways in which they've helped you.
Sure. A great example of the importance of the network of the Working Poor Families Project is our work on family leave. We were actually attending an annual conference at the Working Poor Families Project, and there was a national presenter talking about family leave issues, where states are falling behind. And it was not an issue that the Job Opportunities Task Force had really done much work on. But from that presentation, we took that information, we went back home to Baltimore, began doing some research, had a public forum where we brought some of those national presenters to the state for an open forum for people to learn about what we had learned and begin to form a coalition to work on those issues. Then we started talking to the other states that had had success in this area, and we actually borrowed the legislation from another state, from Maine actually, and we modified their legislation to fit what made sense in Maryland. We talked to a number of the other states, again, who had pushed this issue before to learn about what strategies had worked, where they felt a little bit of weakness, and we molded our strategy based on what had worked in other states. And in the second year of pushing a very significant bill in Maryland, it passed. It impacted 500,000 Marylanders, and it's a terrific thing that really has its origin at the Working Poor Families Project.
So this partnership has led to other partnerships that have really enhanced your ability to...
Exactly. It's incredibly helpful to have other states at the table, organizations similar to ours, who are working on other issues and having modified from a base root of a bill or a policy piece to keep changing it and having someone to talk to figure out what makes sense for your own state.
Ruthie, have you had similar successes in Massachusetts?
Definitely. The Working Poor Families Project has been a great resource. For example, with the Educational Rewards Grant Program, we've had that program since 2006, and we're at the point where the initial investment of $1.5 million to support working adults to go back to school, we're about to deplete that initial investment, and we're trying to refund this grant in a terrible, terrible fiscal climate. But it's been incredibly helpful for us to take the data and the results from my colleagues in Washington State, in Arkansas, that show that these investments really pay off. There's a great return on investment, and that show that even in an economic downturn, it's a worthy investment for the state. And as a result, even in this very tight fiscal climate, we've had 42 legislators sign on to a bill that we filed to refund this, and that's a very high level of support, given that we're asking for $4.5 million. Again, we don't know that it's going to pass, but being able to draw on our colleagues from other states and show what they've done, and almost it's a little bit of a competitiveness, because Massachusetts always likes to think we're at the forefront and we're doing the best in all the areas, but to be able to point out Arkansas and their investments in community college and low-skilled working adults is really effective.
What sort of obstacles have you had to overcome that you've been able to maybe hurdle a little bit easier with this partnership or through the partnership?
Well, most definitely having the data and the results from other states, because our program is rather new. We've had about 500 students go through it, but we haven't done a great job in Massachusetts of producing outcomes from the students who are in the program. But I can again point to other states and say they have a very similar program. Ours is modeled after theirs, and they have a 70% transfer rate of community college students from the first semester to the next semester. We've drawn on these results heavily, and it's really helped us because the legislators want to know, what are they going to get for this investment? Is it going to be a worthy investment, especially in this tight fiscal climate?